How
Hi,
you doing?
Chris. How's it going, buddy?
Good to see you. Congratulations on your new position. That's
Thank
kind
you,
of a
sir.
cool-
So, I have a lot of people ask me questions about the PriorFire and Formula 51 and Formula 17, the mortar. So, what I'd like to do is just ask you some questions and pique your mind, pique your interest on where everything come from as far as going through your brain. But I got to ask a question. Can we get a PG dad joke to start the interview?
Oh my gosh, a PG dad joke?
PG dad
We're
joke.
talking about being put on the spot. So this woman decides she wants a parrot and goes into a pet store to buy one. And the proprietor says, listen, we only have one parrot and its former life was in a house of ill repute, so it has quite the colorful vocabulary. And she says, oh, it's gorgeous. I want it. So she brings it home and they walk in the house and the parrot goes, ah, new house, new madam. And then the two daughters come down the stairs and, ah, two more gals for the house. And then her husband comes home, hi, Keith.
So Keith got in trouble that
Keith got
night.
in trouble, okay.
Keith
Anyway.
got in trouble that night. So I know a little bit about the history, but we want to give everybody out in the chimney industry land a little bit of the history. Can you just kind of go into a brief story of where the PriorFire began and what inspired its content? I know there was a brick version of it. Just kind of give us a little bit of background on where you come up with the retrofit system.
Okay, well, it started out with the brick version of it, which, oh my gosh, I've probably built thousands of them over the years. I think that was 1991 when the current form was hatched. And built that for a good number of years. And then, you know, it's funny, John Meredith and I, at a convention, were sitting down talking, and, you know, it'd be fun to come up with a product. And, you know, after a few drinks, a cigar or two, you know, the thought of making the fire brick version of the PriorFire into a retrofit, you know, seemed like a worthwhile project. So, you know, it was all kind of born on a cocktail napkin. And it's amazing how many cocktail napkins have created amazing things over the year. And so we got together, we met a few times, signed NDA agreements and all of that, and started working on it. And, you know, it kind of morphed into what it is. It was 6 years of development on that and testing. And I can say that it's actually the most tested fireplace in the world. That is a fact.
Just out of curiosity, what made you want to do the retrofit? I mean, if you were happy with the brick, what kind of inspired the retrofit system?
Well, it's funny. I've taught many sweeps how to build the fire brick version over the years. And you have to have a fair amount of masonry skills in order to do that. And because of the shape, you know, it's probably the most intricate cutting job you could ever do on a wet saw. So, you know, it's a pretty limited appeal for that. So with the retrofit, you know, we wanted to create like an amazing fireplace that would be easy enough to build, and would be more in terms of putting a cap on a chimney than doing a full masonry job. And it's kind of nice. We're actually, the sweeps are able to, you know, put something in somebody's house that they can walk away and feel good about it, that they're not going to get callbacks. So that was kind of the motivation.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I do know the few that I have seen burn, the ambiance of that flame is amazing. It does look awesome. Has it evolved over time? Like from where you guys first started and went to UL, is that the rig that everybody's putting in now? Or was there involvement and change done as you guys were building?
Oh, no doubt. Like I said, it was 6 years of development. And we actually had 3 prototypes before the version that we, you know, everybody's putting in now. So that was the 4th iteration of it. And again, it all starts on a napkin, and you go into CAD and do work. So came up with the basic design, sent it out to get fabricated. And the first one, we never even burned. As soon as we got it in-house and started putting it together, it was already up. We got to change this, got to change this. So number 2, we burned that quite a bit and actually did some in-house testing on it. And then there were a few things about it I didn't like. And, you know, we ended up making version 3, which we actually tested for about 2 years. And then finally, it was actually down in Key West, sitting at 4 a.m, sitting at the table because I couldn't sleep, had the computer out and came up with the current design with the whole clip system and everything else.
What was probably the single biggest development issue you ran into when designing the PriorFire? What was the one thing that kept you up at night?
It's funny. What kept me up at night, and I'd say was like in the real world, how long it takes to get things done. Perfect example, anybody that's put one together knows we have these neat little sidewall clips, and you can actually bend something down to set the head joint and all of that. And, so we drew that up, went to the fabricator. They said they had it ready. I flew out and went over to the fabricator, and we tried to bend that tab down, and it was just too hard. So we pulled the CAD out. Oh, we got to shrink this down 5/1000ths of an inch. All right, 2 weeks later, flew out again, and it was too flimsy. It would break off. And it said 2 weeks after that, flew out again, and it was like Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Baby Bear. This was just right. But that was like a month for a stupid little, it's incredible how long it takes to get things done. And searching for materials. That's one thing where John was amazing. He knows, all around the world where to get pretty cool and interesting thing. And I know the brick, there's only one place to source it in Germany. And I know when we first started importing them was right during COVID, when the ports were backed up and all of this. So it was very, very hard logistically to get the brick, and buying them by the container load, and materials prices were going crazy. So that's really the only. I don't think design-wise. Our engineering was really sound. We pretty much knew what we wanted to do, and our instincts were good, and so there weren't too many troubles in that aspect of it anyway.
Obviously, you were happy with the results that you were getting, and you felt comfortable going to UL. Kind of explain to everybody the process of getting into UL, the process of, the kind of guidelines that UL gave you and the testing rig that you had to put it in. Just kind of go over that, like what all entailed the UL testing for Saver Systems and the PriorFire.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting story, actually. So we did some research, and it's interesting. When you sell stuff to sweeps, they like to see the UL label. Something's UL listed. There are other test labs that are accredited and all around the country that are infinitely cheaper than UL, but they don't like to see tested to UL such and such. They want to see that UL stamp. So it became patently obvious that we were going to have to ultimately go through UL. So we did a bunch of research, figured out, what the test that we'd be testing to was, and essentially built a replica of that test setup in-house. So we knew from our own research and trial and error that, we were going to go up there and pass without, our engineering was sound. So we went up to UL and met with, found out who our project engineer was going to be, Sal. He's
awesome guy there as well.
Awesome guy. Everybody knows Sal, and he's been there forever. And Dennis, our lab tech, he's been there forever. So UL's quite an extraordinary place.
We spent a lot of time with Dennis in a small room, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. And the first time we went up there during COVID, that was like crazy. What we wanted to test too was, we wanted the retrofit to be zero clearance with 4 inches of masonry with wood in contact. That's like the ultimate test. That's what we're seeing out in the field, and that's the reason we developed this, is to, so you don't have to do major demolition and reconstruction to fit real world circumstances. And that was kind of the bit. So the test for our kind of a product, it's akin to any fireplace accessory that gets inserted into a masonry firebox. Not like a wood stove, but any kind of an accessory. So anything with refractory panels and, ours are individual bricks, so it all gets lumped into that category. The problem was that within the UL test that we had to take is in UL 907, it specifies what the test rig is, the fireplace that you're going to actually insert this thing into. And it really wasn't set up for 4-inch zero clearance. It had a firebox in it. And so you had 8-inch thick walls. We're going to talk about the smoke chamber product in a little bit, but we did that test at the same time. We wanted to be 4-inch zero clearance. And the smoke chambers are all double wall, 8-inch clear. So it seemed crazy to pay money to build a rig like that, to just go in and tear everything out to get it down to a 4-inch shell. And, I had kind of an argument with them about that. And, I said, I'm going to submit you a proposal to the way I think that 907 rig should be built that would be more akin to the kind of testing we want to do. So we drew that up. I don't know, it was like a 12-page proposal with CAD drawings and everything else. And we submitted it, and basically Sal said, this is over my pay grade, and they put it up to the engineering team, and it was unanimous. They said, yes, this is what you need to build in order to test it. So that was quite a feather in the cap for Sabre Systems, no doubt about that. And so we ended up building, we went up there, we built it, and again, COVID, their masonry crew was considered non-essential, so we went up and built it, and you had to source the materials up there, and then we installed the unit. So you build a rig, it has to cure for 28 days. We went up and installed the retrofit unit and the smoke chamber parge product. That had to cure for 28 days. Now you go back again for the actual test, and we had to build all the fuel cribs. That they were considered non-essential. So we had quite a bit of input on the test, and we knew we were going to pass. We had no doubt about it, and it was pretty extraordinary. That to be in a facility like that, and all the products and things over the years that have been tested there, and it was an amazing experience. We passed with flying colors, and we got a lot of kudos from them on the quality of our engineering and all, how prepared we were. And we passed by such an amazing margin underneath. Okay, so the way the test was, you had 4 inches of masonry underneath the floor of the retrofit, and then there's plywood with thermocouples underneath it. And I don't want to get too technical, but basically, whatever the ambient temperature of the room is, if any of the thermocouples get to be 90 degrees over ambient, you fail. There's hundreds of them, and if even one of them goes over that 90-degree mark, you're done. But we had such a huge margin underneath. It was like, well, we've got the rig and everything up here. So John and I decided, let's peel back one layer. Let's try testing it at 2.5 zero clearance underneath. And, it took, a couple of tries to get the insulation package and everything just right. But we actually passed with the 24 unit with a extra insulation pack underneath the bottom at 2.5 inches zero clearance. So we're the first product to ever beat 4-inch zero clearance in UL history. So that's another feather in the cap.
So the KISS terminology. Can you just kind of go into what that KISS means and kind of why that drove you guys?
It's kind of interesting. KISS, there's also another one. There's an engineering axiom that goes along. Well, KISS is keep it simple, stupid. Yep. Which is always a good thing. But the other axiom is that it's very easy to engineer something difficult. I'm sorry, very easy to engineer something difficult. Yep. It's very difficult to engineer something easy. Okay. So you basically, you build it like 1950s Buick, and then you have to slim it down and make a little race car out of it. That's kind of the process. But and then getting back to like you were talking about the instruction manual, a lot of people don't realize that's part of your UL listing. In other words, they don't just test the product. You don't get your listing until they approve your installation instructions. And, they have some very clear guidelines on how to do that. And, one of the things we were talking about while we were building this whole thing was, we didn't want it to be like an IKEA bookshelf that there's, the instructions are horrible. You need 10 different tools and not all the parts come in the package. And, we said, no, we want this installation manual to be, absolutely first class. So, we actually had every step professionally videotaped. And there are QR codes on the entire manual. So on the front cover, there's a QR code that gives you maybe like a 15-minute overview of the entire installation. And then every step is a QR code. And, oh my God, that was 2 months writing that. And we submitted that to UL, and we did get, it was nice. They said that was the best installation manual that's ever been through UL, which is quite a feather in the cap too for Saver Systems. So
when you guys launched the PriorFire, you also launched a new product, a revolutionary product to this industry, and that was Formula 51. You guys tested them in conjunction at the same time at UL, which you kind of already alluded to that a little bit, that while you guys were building it, you also were building the smoke chamber with the same type of thickness to clearance to combustibles. Just a little bit of background on when you and John worked on Formula 51, kind of what was your thought process? What were you looking for? And why the heck do you call it Formula 51?
All good questions. Well, it's funny because Saver Systems had, I don't know if they still have it, but it's gone, a chamber parging material. And I never liked it, to be truth be told. I didn't think it stuck very well. I didn't like the consistency of it and all of that. And we knew that like a retrofit is not just a firebox. It's really a system. You're trying to create a zero clearance from the chimney cap to the hearth floor and the foundation, as a system. So the smoke chamber had to be addressed. And, at that point in our fabrication process, we were still working and developing the stainless steel smoke chamber that went along with it. So, early on, in order to address a smoke chamber, it had to be parged. So, John and I talked, and he agreed. He said, I never really liked that product either. And, so let's invent one. And like you alluded to, John is like an amazing chemist. So he would ask me, like, what qualities would make a good, smoke chamber, sticky, sticks well, doesn't run, whatever that is. He knew chemically what you would need to achieve that. And so it was funny. It was almost like a blind taste test, and, they'd make up like 3 or 4 formulas. And, out in the lab, we corbelled up a few 4-inch solid blocks to make corbels and had a whole line of them. And, we had like green frog tape, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So Formula 1 through 4 came out. And, we'd mix them according to whatever the directions were, the proper amount of water. And I used a margin trowel, and I would literally, parge the product on. And some of them, they'd fall right off. Anybody that's parged a smoke chamber knows all the headaches with it, right? So, they each one got a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And, finally we got up to like number 48, and it was amazing. You could build it up, it wouldn't sag. And anybody that's used a trowel in a smoke chamber will realize it's real easy to parge something up. But if you take that trowel and parge down, it'll like roll out of the top. So, it took a while to figure out how to make that sticky enough and get the suction that you need so that it would not do that. And sometimes it gets like washboard, like kind of wrinkly and all. So, it took a while to get, and 48 was amazing. And the other part of it is it's not just how well it goes on. It's an insulating product, and it has to hold up to heat and all of that. So you basically take the material and put it into what essentially to the pedestrian looks like a ice cube tray. And you put it, you heat it up in a furnace, and you get these little cubes. And then they crush the cubes and look at them under a microscope and all of this. So 48 went on well, but it shrink cracked when it dried. All right, so now it was, okay, how do we retain the wonderful installer side of 48, but make it, chemically and physically what it needs to be? And it took actually to Formula 51 for that to happen. And it literally was the 51st try at it.
So then you come up with Formula 17 or the fireplace mortar, depends on how everyone looks it up. What's the background on that? Like, why did you feel the need to come up with Formula 17 and not use something that was already existing on the market? What were you and John trying to get out of it for the PriorFire unit itself?
Well, it's funny you say that, because we actually tried every single cement on the market.
Okay.
And, like, if anybody's seen the brick, they're basically like a pressed vermiculite material at a extremely, like 7,000 PSI. And like anything vermiculite, a lot of cement wouldn't bond with it. And certain cements were so hard that if you tried to take it apart, it would destroy the product. The cement was actually harder. So there was really nothing that would bond well with it. And yet, because one of the like, we had certain things that we said were must-haves when we designed the retrofit. And one of them that was very, very important is that it's completely rebuildable. So if you ever had like a broken brick, it would require being able to take a portion of it down, replace a brick, and rebuild it. And if the cement is too hard, you would literally have to destroy it to take it down and rebuild it. So, again, what qualities of the cement do we need? We sat down and, I came up with, well, it's got to feel like this and do this and dry like this. And John said, okay, that means you need this chemical, he knew the chemistry behind it. And it was literally Formula 17, our 17th try at it. And I just love it because 3 times 17 is 51. So they're kind of, mathematically linked. But the other thing, which a lot of people don't even know about with the Formula 17, not only is it a great cement for the retrofit, but it is the most incredible fire brick setting cement, just normal fire brick, like you'd build a fireplace, an oven, a heater, something like that with. And, because with normal cements, you either have pre-mixed cements or dry mixed cements. And the pre-mixed cements are easy. You basically whip them up and use them, but they're not water soluble. So you couldn't set flues with them or use them in damp locations and so on. And the dry formulas, it's a different chemical, and it's non-water soluble, but it's very hydraulic, so it sets up very, very quickly. So it's very frustrating setting fire brick with a hydraulic type of refractory cement. So this is, again, John the chemist and the ability to search the world for really cool materials. And, he found the binder, which again is kind of proprietary, that it is water soluble while it's wet and becomes non-water soluble when it reaches 188 degrees. That's like 88 degrees, 1.21 gigawatts. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Well, anyway, so one problem when you're building a fireplace, especially like the fire brick version of mine, you're constantly defying gravity. Or picture building it like a pizza oven dome and all. And a lot of the cements, they don't have a real quick initial set. So you'd hold the brick, you let go of it, it starts to slide. And that's very frustrating. You're taking sticks and trying to hold it in place. One thing about the Formula 17, we call it the Velcro factor. When you set a brick, you hold it for a few seconds, it has the capillary action on it is amazing. It literally finds its way into all the little pores of the brick, and it's like Velcro. It actually holds it quite beautifully. So you can build like crazy with it. And, you have to include, we did a little video about, the cool properties and how quick that 17 sets. So yeah, that's another amazing product. I forget how long, that was a few weeks working on that one too.
What is one thing that you would just love for the chimney industry or anybody coming up in the industry to know about Chris Prior? one thing. Because I heard you say something when we were walking in here earlier that I don't want to steal your thunder, but I really liked what you said there, because I truly believe that is who you are. And that was, when you're gone, somebody may not know your name, but you want them to look at the stuff that you've worked on and admire what you've built. And I personally have working with you and, been side by side for a lot of these years. Formula 17, Formula 51, and the PriorFire are amazing products that you've built. And everyone in this industry that uses them, loves them, appreciates you for them. And I'm sure you'll be respected for those for years to come. And as I'm sitting here talking to you, I can't help but look over your shoulder to 2 awards that were given to you and to Saver Systems for the design of the PriorFire. What are those awards?
Well,
there?
that wasn't to me. That was to us.
To this whole Saver Systems team, but it was from your design. So let's let you take a little credit. And what are those awards there, Chris?
Okay, the one is the Pete Luter what's it called? Innovation Award.
Yep.
Yeah, that's at the NCSG show. People will submit new product designs and they're voted on. So we won that, and then the other one is from the HPBA show. That was the People's Choice Award. So that was kind of cool. We won that in the same year, first time, two the same year. Pretty cool.
That is awesome.
But that's not why we don't do this for
It's
awards.
not for the awards.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, I don't know. This is my DNA. You know what I mean? I just like doing stuff like this. And,
Hey, you said it best.
I'm not resting on laurels. This is it, man. We got a lot more work to do.
Absolutely, and I know
haven't got that many years left. You know what I'm saying? So I got a lot of work to do.
So thank you for taking the time today. I really appreciate it, and look forward to many years of working with you, Chris.